Hi guys, welcome. This week's project is born of a comment I made last weekend when I did a tip on putting wax on the end of these types of mastic tubes to keep the contents of them from going off. I mentioned that you've got to be careful with them that you don't break the wax coating off the end of them. It got me thinking that probably what I should do is build a holder that will hold these and keep the top to protect the tops from being damaged. So this is what I've come up with. It's a holder that holds 5 tubes. It's wall mounted. It also holds the gun, and on one end holds the candle, so you don't need to go and try and find one when you want to seal them up. Let's have a look at how I made it. Now, when I made the file for this project, I really didn't take much notice of what thickness the wood was. I knew it was around about the 18mm mark. I've come out now and I've measured it, and it measures 16mm thick. Now, this isn't a problem. I don't need to worry about that, because where I reference my cutter to the material will sort everything out for me. I'm first going to drop the cutter down to the table until the cutter just touches it, and I'll just use eye to measure that. I'll just take it down a little bit more. There we go. It's just resting on the tabletop there. And in Mach 3, I'm just going to enter a Z height of -18, which is what I told, which is where the table would be if the material was 18mm thick. Now that the holes are all drilled, I'm going to change that end mill to a different one. So I'm just going to lift it up and remove the cutter from the chuck, from the collet I should say. There we go. Now, this is a 3mm upcutting spiral, just ideal for drilling holes. To get the best finish on the plywood, I'm going to be using a 1/4 inch down cutting spiral bit to complete the rest of the cuts. This will give me nice sharp edges on top, basically give me a better finish. When putting a cutter into a collet, don't push it right to the top and clamp it in that position. Bring it down a little bit from the top. Otherwise you can end up damaging your collet. Right, now as I said before, I made this file for an 18mm piece of plywood, and this one's only 16mm. Now the tool paths I'm about to run are for pockets, and I want those pockets a certain depth, which means I need to reference my cutter from the top of my material. So basically I'm just going to take it to an unused piece of plywood there and just slowly jog it down until those cutter tips are just fractionally above my board there. Basically they're virtually touching it, so close you really can't tell. So then I'm going to come over to Mach 3 and I'm just going to zero my Z axis. I'm not going to touch my X and Y because they're already correct. So I can now lift my cutter and resume my cut. When I drilled those holes before, I had the router set at about 5,500 RPM, but I'm now going to wind it up to 10,000. We've now just finished cutting these pockets out, and now it's time to do the cuts that will go right through the material and basically profile this here out so we've got our 3 pieces. Now, if I leave the cutter zeroed where it is, I'm going to end up cutting right through my board and into the tabletop. Because this is only 16 millimeters thick, it's going to go 18 millimeters deep. I've got 2 millimeters less wood here than I should. So the solution to that is simply bring the cutter over here, drop the cutter to the table. When it touches the tabletop here, call it Z of minus 18 millimeters, and then start cutting again. Now the important thing is, before you restart the cutting, just lift the cutter up nice and high and basically just take it back to roughly where it was when it started, but do make sure your cutter's up high, otherwise you're likely to run into some trouble. You can see here, my first cut, which is a depth of 3 millimeters, is barely just touching the plywood here. So now I need to release this here from its holding tabs. So I'm just going to use a chisel and cut them like so. And the final piece. So what I need to do now is just to tidy this up, I'm going to run this around the router table and just put a little round over in these holes around these edges here, just to make it look that little bit nicer. I'm only going to do from about here round to here, because this is going to screw in like that. And I don't want the round over going past this point here. Now that my bits are all rounded over where I want them to be, I'm going to enlarge in these holes here. And I'm going to use one of these here. This is a drill designed to drill a hole for a screw and do the countersink as well. It also has the drill for the thread, then a larger portion here, which is screw clearance through my material, and then the countersink. In this particular instance, on this side here, which is going to be the side this is going to screw against, I'm going to take it all the way through just to show up the holes here, which will be the bottom, the side the screw actually goes in from. And I just want to get a little bit of this countersink here into it, so that I'll get through about half that material there, and just a small amount of countersink as well, and that'll give me a bit of clearance. So just like this, I just don't want much, but I just want to get a little bit of countersink into each hole. Okay, that's now show me where the other side of the hole is. And this time I'm going to go through and actually put a proper countersink in. Not too deep though. By having the hole in here larger than the screw thread size, it will allow it to pull up tight to this piece here. If a lot of people make the mistake of just drilling the hole through, and it's only just the right size for the thread, and inevitably what happens is you get a little bit of a burr on this side of the material, which when you go to screw them together, the two pieces don't pull tight. They usually sit apart like this. An exaggeration, but they end up sitting apart and they just don't pull tight. So by using this particular method, I'll be able to pull the screws up nice and tight. I just about forgot about these little holes here. These here are where my dowels are going to go, and they need the same treatment as well. So just through into the pocket there until the countersink just touches the hole, and then a proper countersink on the back. I'm going to be using 1-inch super screws to hold this together. But first I need to also cut these dowels to the required length, which will be the depth of the pocket plus the back plus the depth of the pocket on top. I'll start with the bottom piece. Now you'll notice there's also two holes in this piece here which I haven't enlarged yet, and these are for mounting it to the wall. I'll just countersink these ones here in. And again, just put a slight countersink on the back as well. So with this being the mounting screws, this will be at the top. This is the bottom piece, the one with the pockets in it. So I'm not going to bother gluing this here. If I feel the need, I can come back and glue it later. I'll just put in a screwdriver bit, grab a screw, and I should be able to wind it in. Bring it to the edge of my table, line that there up nice and flush. There we go, that's nice and flush on both edges there, so I can do one at the back, at the other end. I can put the ones in the center. Now, we'll put in these dowels here. And what I might do is I might just round over these edges. They're a tight fit in the hole there. These are for a 12mm dowel. I picked that because that was the size dowel I actually had. So I'll just put a slight bevel on the edge of these dowels so they go in a little bit easier. One there and one there. Now the top piece should go on. And we now have to do the same again. Line up the edge and put our screw in. So I'm going to use this edge here again as a reference edge. Again, that's nice and flush. Other side. That's flush as well. And we'll do the ones in the centre. Now we can put our screws in for our dowels. Top and bottom. And there we have it, our Mastic tube holder. As a final cleanup, I've sanded the top here to get rid of the printing that was sitting on the top board here. And I've added 2 cup hooks and I've straightened them slightly. So let's just try, we'll put the tubes in. They're a nice fit, and obviously this will take up to 5 different tubes. I think 5 is probably more than enough for most people. Covers sort of the full range of different types of material that the home handyman's likely to have anyway. There's a hole here, recessed there. That's to put your candle in so you can actually find it when you want it. And last but not least, cup hooks are there to hold the actual gun itself, so that everything you need is held together in one place. You don't need to go searching for it. I'm going to be screwing this up high onto my wall so that the tops are basically right out of the way of anything that's likely to knock into them and knock the wax off. If you've enjoyed this video, please remember to like it. If you'd like to make one of your own, I'll put a link in the description box below so that you can download the plans to make your own. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys later. I better go and find a bit of wool to put this on.